Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Kathryn, that's Emily, and oh boy, was that a race.
Yeah, it was a race. It was exciting, like, kind of, sort of. Mostly because it's shaping next weekend to be incredible, so it was like our little teaser. But yeah, we had some good racing, I will admit.
Yeah, it's pretty much all to play for. And before we dive into everything and talk about all of the things that we've seen over the last couple of days, this will be our Qatar Grand Prix reaction and also our Abu Dhabi Grand Prix predictions, because it's a busy week and there's really not a lot to talk about to make Abu Dhabi predictions a full episode. So you're getting both today. Congratulations.
Also, because we can't talk about Qatar without talking about Abu Dhabi, so it's like, why talk about it all twice? Let's just do one big happy episode. Yay.
Yes. Exactly. So there isn't going to be much between now and Thursday or Friday. And if there is, we will address it in the reaction episode. But to start, I'm glad the sprint calendar is done and over with, because that was terrible.
God, I know. It was horrible. It's like, this track is not suited to be a sprint. I don't know why we're getting rid of the sprint in like Brazil, because I love the sprint in Brazil. It's always a good sprint. Coda's a good sprint track. Qatar? No, not a good sprint track. Why do we always do the sprint here? I don't know.
Money.
Well, I know that, Kathryn. But, like...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this entire weekend goes to show you just how poorly suited the Qatar track is for Formula One. And if you don't know, and if you haven't heard us mention it about 42,000 times, this is a MotoGP track that is been bent over backwards to make it as suitable as possible for Formula One, which is why we have things like track limits issues that we had that made the sprint very unexciting, because you can't gamble during a sprint if you know that you're going to get a 5-second penalty. And also the tire lap limits, like, that is because Qatar is so unsuited for Formula One that it causes so much damage, which, you know, we've seen tracks in history that have been so unsuitable to Formula One that when a tire is constructed poorly, you have the 2005 United States Grand Prix in Indianapolis, which I've done a whole episode on. Yeah. So this is like the continuing adventures of why Qatar gives us drama, but not in a good way.
Right. The only thing that made the race exciting was the mandatory tire pits.
Yeah. And also McLaren screwing up.
Well, no, but that goes with like the strategy and the tires, right, and really having to like manage that more so here than other places. Like, yes, we have mandatory pit stops, right? Like certain ones you have to pit. You have to have 2 different compound tires, which is fine. They made a mandatory 2-stop in Monaco this year, seeing if that would change anything. It didn't.
And we'll try
again next year. But this is tire lap, like mandating tire laps, because in theory, on any other track, say it's 72 laps or whatever, 52, random number, you can go 51 laps on one tire and then 1 lap on another compound, and that, you know, fulfills the requirement of 2 different compounds. But here, with the tire limits, like what are you laughing at?
There's the cat in the background trying to climb up the wall.
Did she just jump up?
She did.
Frank, what are you doing? You can't have flying cats.
That was great, Frank.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Oh, there she is. Hello, friend. Currently recording at my friend's house, and she has a cat that is very brave and loves the spotlight, so she's trying to get in front of the camera, and she probably will at one point, so bear with me. Anyways, so that will fulfill like the 2 compound requirement. But with Qatar, the tire limitations, because of the track, is they could only go 25 laps on every single tire, regardless of the compound. But that was the limit, and because of that, there was a safety car on lap 7, so when cars pitted, they had to pit on lap 32. Like, they already knew when they were coming to pit, which really throws off the strategy, because if you know when your, competition is pitting, it makes things really different. Like, obviously, they could pit before, but they couldn't pit after. So, between lap 30, 32, everyone is pitting, except for McLaren, like you were talking about, because they chose to stay out.
And what's also really interesting, and what also I thought really played into the McLaren I don't know why McLaren did this, because not only do you have the 25 lap limit, but you knew that the medium tires were only going to be good for 20 laps. Like, there was no data on the hards, obviously, because there was no time to run hards, and nobody run like you barely run hards anyway, and you're definitely not going to in a sprint weekend. But they knew from the sprint, like the only thing that they learned from the sprint was that those tires are going to fall off on lap 20. So yeah, you have 25 laps, but you're only going to have maybe 20 good ones, give or take, the safety car. So I really think that played into, I don't understand what McLaren was thinking when they decided to try. Like, I know this is the car that has the best pace on track, but it was still a gamble, and obviously they had to do what their opponent didn't. And Red Bull also gambled. Shout out to lead strategist Hannah Schmitz, who's a genius at this stuff, but McLaren still really screwed up today.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I think they went with their gut, which it was maybe wrong, but Qatar generally, we do see safety cars fairly often. So here's the thing, if they made the gamble to stay out and there's another safety car and they would have gotten a free pit stop, essentially, like, they would have been crowned as geniuses. So it really is just which way the pendulum is going to swing with safety cars. And we've seen this type of strategy come out of Ferrari. We've seen this type of strategy from Mercedes. And I think this is just what they locked in on strategy-wise. Like, they weren't anticipating a safety car that early. And it just happened to be on, like, that key lap. Listening to all the commentators and the presenters this weekend saying lap 7 is really a key lap, because if you can make it to lap 7 and there's a safety car, or you pit, at 32, and then you can make 32, 33, you can make it to the rest of the race with only with the same set of tires, where everyone else is maybe pitting. So I think it just happened to not fall in their favor. I don't necessarily think that it was like, wow, they really, really messed up. I think it was just they made a decision and it was the wrong one. But I don't necessarily think it was like a huge mistake.
Well, it's not entirely, but I do think that they would have done this differently had Lando been in the lead. And had Lando been in the lead, I do think that, because one of the reasons why they didn't pit both of the drivers during that safety car was because they knew that the second driver to pit was going to be at a disadvantage if everybody decided to pit, which the entire grid did pit, other than the McLarens. And if Lando was in the lead and they were trying to protect Lando's position at the expense of Oscar, they would have done it.
Maybe, but I also think, they saw it as, we have the best pace. If we don't pit, like, maybe the safety car doesn't have as many laps and we can, we have the ability to create distance, which, I mean, Oscar did. Oscar came out in front of Sainz and Kimi because of his pace. So I don't think it's necessarily like, I think they just put too many eggs in one basket. But I don't know if they would have necessarily changed it if Lando was in the lead.
That said, I think they really were overly reliant on the mediums and trying to make the mediums work more than they were ever going to. You saw in the sprint that Oscar led wire to wire, but he only won by 4 seconds. And it wasn't because George was like gaining on him or anything, when George finished in P2. It was just that those mediums did not have enough pace for what McLaren wanted to do. And obviously nobody knew what the hards were going to do until Pierre Gasly put a set on at the beginning of, in that second stint. But they were really, I think, over-reliant on those mediums, which is another reason why you have such an issue with the sprint weekends, where a sprint weekend, robs you of an entire practice session because of the way that they've changed the formatting to have a sprint qualifying and a regular qualifying, where you could just have the sprint set the grid like it used to, and it would be less bad, but still awful.
Yeah, and I think for other tracks with the sprint, I don't think it's as big of a deal. But for ones like Qatar, where you never know what the track is going to do to your tires. Like last year or 2 years ago, we had 8. You could only go 18 laps. Now it's 25. So like, it's not going to be as consistent, if you will, as maybe other tracks where like, oh, hards don't work here. But this is like, well, maybe the hard will be good. Maybe it won't. Who knows? It's Qatar. So yeah,
you have to wait for
Qatar
a back marker.
Can't be a sprint. Exactly. Like, I think Qatar is just really brutal for a sprint. Can you imagine, Kathryn, if we were at 18 laps and it's a 19 lap sprint? Like, what do you do? Because you can't go the full sprint on one set of tires.
Well, they did, and that's why they had so many issues, which is why they mandated the lap requirements to 18 after the sprint race.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just it wasn't it. I really dislike Qatar, but as a Red Bull fan, I come out of things happy because Max cut his deficit to 12 points. He's still very clearly in the running for the championship.
Yeah. No, super exciting. I mean, I'm pumped. I think this is amazing. Max came back from being down, 104 points or something stupid, 112. I don't know, a big number. And now he overtook Oscar, and he's only, like you said, 12 points behind Lando. This just goes to show how incredible of a driver he is. And I hate being a Max fan now, but I am throwing my full weight behind him. I hope he wins next weekend. I hope Lando DNFs. I want Max to win the championship. I want Zach Brown to be livid, because if they would have just supported Oscar, they would have had a driver championship, but now they don't, and this is what's happening. So, yeah. So speaking of the scenarios, there are about 1 million scenarios, but it all basically boils down to Lando needs to win the race or finish on the podium. Max needs to win, and Lando needs to finish off the podium, and Oscar needs a miracle. And by that, it means Oscar needs to win, and if Lando finishes 6 or lower, regardless of where Max finishes, he will win. And I think if if Oscar finishes second, and Lando finishes outside of the points, I don't remember where Max has to finish, but there are basically 2 major scenarios for Oscar, a lot of scenarios for Lando, and a handful for Max. But it really all goes down to Lando needs to finish off the podium, and Max will win the championship. But look at what happened this weekend. Max won, Lando finished off the podium. So it's not like it's this crazy wild scenario. It's very realistic.
And the other thing is that it's kind of been forgotten within this, battle for the championship between these 3 drivers, which there hasn't been a 3-way fight for the title in a million years, but there are other drivers that are going to be in top positions that these drivers are going to have to fight around. So today we saw it was Kimi and Carlos. Had George not had a terrible day and didn't get held up in that first set of pit stops, George would have been in the mix too. And these are all cars that are not easy to overtake for anyone. I mean, if you look at Kimi and Lando's fight, like the only reason why Lando got ahead of him is because Kimi went off, not on purpose. They didn't show the replay until the cool down room, but Kimi did not let Lando by, like people were saying, which Toto's rightfully upset about. But Kimi had some understeer and he bobbled and went off track, and Lando was like, don't mind if I do, which is, entirely fair for Lando. But Kimi drove, when Kimi was on, Kimi was driving phenomenally.
I know, and I hate to say it, but that little mistake may have messed up Max's chances for the championship, because it's 2 points, which is a huge difference. 10 to 12, that's a huge difference. There'd be, even more handfuls of scenarios than for Max to win the Drivers' Championship. And I think that's why GP got on the radio and was upset about it and telling Max, because he was like, well, this sucks. But yeah, I mean, those we saw this coming from every single driver. There were little bobbles and oversteering here and there. I think that's just the nature of the track. But, I mean, still, all in all, Kimi drove really, really well. I think he's really coming into his own. He had a really strong start, some, in the middle, and then he's coming out to a solid end of the season, if you will. I think he's jumped Lewis Hamilton now in the standings. Is that right? Am I wrong? I think he jumped him because Lewis finished out of the points. I don't even think they said Lewis Hamilton's name once this weekend.
I mean, honestly, Kimi has not. So Lewis is currently P6 in the championship with 152 points. Kimi has 150, which has caveat, the point system has changed over the years, but Kimi has blown the rookie record for points out of the water, which I think originally actually belonged to Alex Albon, because Albon broke Lewis's record his rookie year. But yeah, it is Lewis. If Lewis drives the way he has been driving the last 2 weekends, he will lose P6 to the guy who took his seat at Mercedes.
Well, also speaking of seat flopping, right? So Carlos actually is doing better and has been on the podium more this year than Lewis Hamilton, who took his seat, and he did it in a Williams.
Yeah.
No, I know this morning I was behind because I had an incident with my dog, so I started the race like 15 minutes behind, and oh my gosh, it was so stressful. But my friend texted me, she's like, "Oh my gosh, Carlos is on the podium again. Am I like actually seeing this? Is this real?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know yet, but if it is, I'm really excited."
Yeah, I was like, I can't say anything to Emily right now.
I'm so excited, and it was a James Vowles weekend on the commentary, which was awesome. But I'm so happy for Carlos. We've been waiting for this, I think, all season. We weren't expecting this. I don't think they were expecting this. I mean, Carlos even said they were coming into this weekend thinking it would be one of the most difficult for them, just based on their car. But it ended up being a good weekend for him. Albon again is struggling a little bit, but it's great to see Carlos doing well. We've said all along that he generally does better the second half of the season once he's more comfortable with the car. He's really shown that. But it was great. It was awesome. I'm so happy.
And I really think that safety car pit stop really was make or break for his track position. Like there would had Williams not executed the perfect pit stop, gotten him out of that traffic during the scrum, we're literally at, like they were joking like that was Ted Kravitz's crazy pit lane of his life, which is kind of true. And that was huge for Carlos. He's become the first Williams driver to have 2 podiums in the same season since 2015, when Felipe Massa and Valtteri Bottas both managed it. And like, this is Williams. Like Williams is like, they're a championship team, and to see like, oh my God, 2 podiums in a season, that's so exciting, is wild. But also great to see where they're improving. They've clinched P5 in the championship. Like they that is confirmed, their highest finish since 2017, and currently most points since 2016, which they could very well break next week.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping Alex comes back and just does really well next week. I want him to finish on a high note. Even though this is like the last race of the regulation, next season is going to be absolutely insane. I think we're going to have one huge front runner for the first like 6 races, and then things will kind of like maybe even out. I feel like that's generally how it is. One team really, really gets it right, and then everybody else kind of like catches up slowly. But I hope that's Williams. Honestly, I really
That'd
like
be
how
so
well
fun.
I have so much faith in James Vowles. I'm hoping for the best, but yeah, I think I'm ready to hang up my Ferrari hat and just throw a big W up. Go Williams.
I just I don't know, like nobody knows what's happening at Ferrari right now, and it's not even just everything that we've been talking about with like how they engineer themselves into loopholes that get cut off. It's like, there is no reason that Lewis Hamilton can't be qualifying out of a paper bag, or that, Charles is struggling so much, and that this car has, like, where did the pace go? Did somebody like steal the, something out of the garage and steal something out of the car? Like there's like, it's absolutely insane how badly they have been, not even the latter half of the season. I mean, yes, but like really just the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's embarrassing, honestly. And I love how Charles on the radio was like trying to find something to like excuse why he's driving so poorly, and they're like, "No, you're fine." He's like, "No, something's wrong," and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with the car."
That really just goes to show, just and Charles obviously knows the car better than anyone except maybe Carlos. And Carlos is not even on the team anymore. But there there is no like. I don't know how you can be someone like Charles Leclerc who's like trying everything with this car to get anything out of it. And obviously he's able to get a little bit more than Lewis has been. And Lewis is going through so much with trying to, you know, build relationships with 2 race engineers, a brand new car, brand new engine, you know, everything is so new and different for him. But, you know, it should not be this difficult for either of them to try to scrape out anything. They should be getting sneaky points and being like not to Ferrari standards, but they shouldn't be driving with the Alpines.
No, and I mean earlier in the season they were getting sneaky points and they were in P2 at one point for the constructors, and now they're in what, P4?
Yes, I think they're
behind a team with only one driver.
They are, and they're by they're like almost 40 points. Like that's
embarrassing.
That's awful. And like you said, Red Bull doesn't have 2 drivers.
I mean, they do. Yuki got a point this weekend, so
I will say,
let's give them that.
That you're totally fair, and my prediction that Yuki would be better but not be able to help Max did actually come true. Like I did get that right when I picked Yuki for P10. So
yeah,
you know, this is a Yuki that has been on an upswing, but I do also think it's a little too late for Yuki, and I think Red Bull has made their decision. I think you know, everyone's saying it's an open secret in the paddock that Isaac Hadjar is going to replace him next year, and they're going to announce that at the end of the season. I do think that what it's really going to come down to is Arvid Lindblad's performance, because he's going to be replacing Yuki in FP1 in Abu Dhabi next week as part of the last round of rookie drivers. And I think especially if we see another performance from Lindblad where he's outscoring the rookie drivers and drivers that are currently on the grid again, as he did last time, what was that, Mexico? Recently, that's really going to indicate, you know, where Lindblad is going to be and if they're going to keep him in F2 for another year or if they're going to put him in with Lawson at Racing Bulls.
Well, yeah, because Yuki, like, my thing that I hate to say is Yuki won't have a seat next year.
Right. Yeah, that's the
Which
one.
Which is really sad and hard to see because he's been such a staple for the last few years. I think he's really improved as a driver. I think he's suffering, you know, the dreaded curse of being Max's teammate like everybody else. And I don't want that to happen to Isaac. But again, I think I mentioned this like back when I recorded last, which was maybe a month or 2 ago. Isaac might just be the guy that Max needs because going into a new regulation as well, maybe that's helpful. Maybe he just has to get used to the car. He's a rookie. And he only has 1 season, so it's not like he's used to a specific car setup in F1.
Right.
Maybe this is the golden, you know, ticket for their success. But I don't know.
Maybe back. 15th time is the charm. But yeah, that's really going to be, you know, key here. You know, the other thing is it's really unfortunate that Yuki finally got to Red Bull just as he's moved away from being the, you know, the Honda driver that Red Bull was forced to drive. And yes, he was, you know, very capable at, you know, in his days at AlphaTauri and when he was driving with Pierre. But I think it was really made clear around the time that Danny Ricciardo got thrown back into the mix that Red Bull kept Yuki because Honda told them to. And Yuki unfortunately was never able to take his chance at Red Bull. He was thrown in so quickly with, you know, everything that happened at the beginning of the year with Lawson and all of that. And the Red Bull was, you know, was not that great before they engineered it to engineered it to the car that we have now. So it's really unfortunate for Yuki, but I think this might be like maybe a year off. And then, you know, we might see him again. We've been saying for a while now that Yuki's best shot on the grid outside of Red Bull is going to be Aston Martin. So
Aston Martin, yeah.
That's
and
really where I think
that we'll see him. I think it's interesting now that Newey is the team principal, right? Because he's
right.
You know, semi worked with Yuki in the past, and maybe if he goes to Daddy Stroll and he's like, "Hey, listen, we got to change this up," maybe he'd listen. Maybe Yuki will get a spot. I don't think they're going to get rid of Alonso, but you never know.
Yeah. And the other thing is, as much as Honda is saying, like, we're not going to mandate a driver, it's not like they're going to be like, sorry, Yuki, we're not going to go to bat for you because you don't have a spot on the grid and you're not our problem anymore. And I don't mean problem as actual problem, but like,
right.
Yuki has been Honda's driver for half a decade now. And beyond that, so it's really I think we will see him in the pen. Aston Martin just announced Jack Crawford is going to be their new reserve driver. He will be driving for Stroll in FP1 in Abu Dhabi, but the opportunity to have a driver with experience, we saw at Alpine, they scooped up Franco Colapinto the second he was available, and the second that Williams was cool with sending him over there, and he's staying at Alpine. So
I know. I really, really hope that he has a good season next season. Like, I think Alpine's completely thrown this season away. I don't think. Right. I know they've thrown this season away. Right. So I'm glad to see him getting a true chance with the team with a good car.
Exactly. So I really think that that's going to be good for him. And this could also be good for Yuki, where if Yuki potentially goes to Aston Martin, helps Jack Crawford develop. Fernando isn't going to drive forever, but he's going to drive as long as he wants to. But still, Aston Martin is going to eventually need a replacement, and that could very well be Yuki. It could very well be Yuki and Jack if they decide to get rid of both, or if they decide to move on from both Lance and Fernando. Fernando's apparently also about to become a dad, so like Fernando could very well be ready to chuck it in if he doesn't see a lot of great, happy, fun times in 26 and 27. Same with Max, who has also come out and said that if I don't like the rules and regulations in the car in 2026, I'm just going to retire. I don't need to do this anymore. Like he's even said, like, he doesn't need a 5th world championship. He knows he can get it now, and mathematically it's still possible. He doesn't need it in his life, and he will happily retire before 2028 comes around, where he also probably will retire. So that's going to be a real big bunch of question marks, especially if Red Bull does what everyone is assuming they're going to do and move on from Yuki this year.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I wonder if their move putting Lawson down and pulling up Yuki really screwed Yuki out of a seat next year, because he was doing fine at Racing Bulls, and now that they changed the car at Red Bull, I think Lawson probably could have done better. Did they get rid of him too early? Like, I'd like to argue no, because I don't think he was deserving of that seat. I think Yuki was from the get-go. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I've thought, what if they didn't make that change? What would happen? I mean, I'm sure everyone's thinking that, but it's just interesting thought. But
yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of that for, Danny, just like they couldn't replace Checo with Danny, even though they wanted to. Over the last couple of years, the way that Red Bull has had this massive logjam of drivers. The other thing is, like, Liam Lawson had a contract that Red Bull had to honor, or they were going to lose him, and they weren't ready to lose him out of the Red Bull family of networks. So they this is like where having too much good talent becomes such a problem.
Yep. Oh, I can't wait to do our season recap when we go back and talk about, like, Jack Doohan.
Oh, that poor guy. I hope he gets a break somewhere. It's probably not going to be in Formula One, but I hope he gets a break somewhere, and I hope it's with the team that actually, like, appreciates his talents.
Yeah. Go Jack.
He can do what Mick Schumacher did and spend a few years in endurance and then go to IndyCar.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's get into our recap of our Qatar predictions and then roll into our Abu Dhabi predictions for next week as well. We did get some points in our guesses this weekend. Not a ton. And we also canceled each other out, so there's really no change, but let's go through them anyways. So we made predictions for sprint and the Grand Prix, 6 in total, and we only got 3 points each because it's really hard to do this. So for sprint pole, Oscar came out of I don't want to say nowhere, but kind of surprised
nowhere.
us. You had Lando, I had Max, and so he also won the sprint, which we did not have him on podium, but we did get P2 and P3 right each, so that was kind of good. But we did have Max Verstappen winning, George getting P2, and Lando in P3. And then for sprint P8, Carlos nabbed the last point, which I predicted, which was exciting, and you had Lewis Hamilton, who was
Definitely not
close
nope.
to P8. Then going into the Grand Prix, Oscar again got pole. You had Max, I had Lando, so, again, not thinking he would be there, but good for him. And then for the Grand Prix podium, it was Max, Oscar, Carlos, and we did not get anywhere close to that. You had Max, George, Charles, poor Charles, and I had Max, Kimi, Charles as well. So good surprise for the podium, I would say, but no points for us again, which seems to be a theme. And then for P10, like you mentioned earlier, you had Yuki getting 1 point in P10, so you get 3 points. And then I had Alex Albon, who unfortunately was nowhere close to P10.
He was P11.
Oh, he ended in P11? Why did I think he was like P17? I think because he was most of the race.
Probably. No, and I do want to point out, especially after what happened in Vegas, they have released the final classifications. So everything has been confirmed. Scrutineering is done. And the skid planks are all where they're supposed to be.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay, and then going into our just for funzy predictions, biggest surprise of the weekend and who's going to do it dumb. We actually did pretty well. You said double points for V-Carb. Unfortunately, Isaac had a late puncture and that dropped him from getting close to the points. I said that Max was going to do Max Tings and
he did.
As for who's going to do a dumb, we pretty much just said McLaren and we were right.
Yeah.
So I said that Lando wasn't going to clinch, and you said that McLaren was going to double down on Lando, and unfortunately they made the wrong call. Maybe it was right at the time, but unfortunately, overall strategy, it was the wrong call to not pit, which caused neither Lando or Oscar to win. So yeah, go team.
Yeah, I mean, Qatar, was a pivotal race, I think. Was it a good race weekend? Not really. I
say it's good only because it makes next weekend more exciting.
Yes. I'll give it that.
Yeah. But I think if this was like a boring Lando wins race, he clinches, like there's no reason to watch Abu Dhabi. And now it's like you can't not watch Abu Dhabi. Right. Because exactly. What's going to happen? Is Max going to pull off like the greatest comeback ever or what?
We shall see it is Sunday as we record this, so we will see in 1 week, and I'm really excited. We haven't been traumatized by an Abu Dhabi race since 2021, so it's either going to be an Abu Dhabi race where Max bookends his time as world champion, or it is a Abu Dhabi race where he's going to extend his time as world champion, and I'm really excited to see either option. And
watch, Max is going to win and Lando's going to get like P3.
It's going to be real annoying if that happens.
I'll be so pissed. But yeah, so speaking of Abu Dhabi, and like we were mentioning earlier, there are a lot of free practice rookies this weekend. So like we've been talking throughout the season, and at the very first episode, they have changed the rookie driver sessions. So now each team has to do 4 rookie sessions, 2 for each driver. This is the last race of the season, so a lot of people have to get them in there. So Kathryn, run us through who all is being replaced and who is taking a seat for the rookie driving sessions this weekend.
Yeah, so like I said already, Arvid Lindblad, who is in F2, who is the next rookie phenom, who could be the next Max Verstappen, for all we know. He is going to be in for Yuki, as I said. Jack Crawford at Aston Martin is going to be in for Lance Stroll. Crawford is actually looking to clinch P2 in the F2 championship in Abu Dhabi. They've already crowned their winner, whose name is currently escaping me. I apologize, but he's not on the radar for an F1 seat at this point, so it's okay. At Racing Bulls, we have Ayumu Iwasa driving for Liam Lawson. There is a Ferrari driver who needs to be replaced. I'm not sure who it is, and I'm not sure who's going to be doing the replacing, but it's Ferrari, so it doesn't really matter. At Haas, Ryo Hirakawa will be driving for Esteban Ocon. He's been driving for everyone lately, and it's just he's technically a rookie, even though he's like closer to my age, or closer to your age. Williams will be Luke Browning for Alex Albon, and Alpine will be the other reserve driver, Paul Aaron, for Pierre Gasly. But what's most interesting is McLaren has to replace Oscar for Oscar's last shot at the miracle he needs to win the World Drivers' Championship. I don't know who is going to be. I don't know if they have announced who's replacing him. I don't know if it might be Pato O'Ward, who drove a couple in Mexico.
Probably. That's what I'm thinking.
But I remember them when they announced it, they're like, sorry, we have to do this. And I'm like, you have to give Oscar one last opportunity at a practice session in a race that we knew was going to be the most pivotal race period, even before he decided to turn things around this last week. And they're like, that's just how it goes. And I'm like, you really scheduled this very poorly. It's so McLaren of them. And like, they probably would have gone to the FIA and be like, we need a rule change if this was for Lando, which also they're asking the FIA to review the skid plank rules in light of their double disqualification in Vegas. And they're basically, we don't like that rule because we were bitten too hard by it. So you need to get rid of it.
Well, I don't care what they say. It's a rule's a rule. Even though I was arguing last week that like it's such a dumb rule, and it is. However, it's a rule. It's
been a rule for decades. So that's and the real biggest risk is whoever they put in the car. Like, if they crash Oscar's car, then they're gonna have to fix Oscar's car.
I know.
That's the real big question.
If I'm them, I'd be like, hey man, super excited for you. Drive 100 miles slower than everybody else. Don't mess up the car.
Do not break my vehicle. So it's going to, and I think that obviously McLaren has already parted ways with Alex Dunn, who was their like go-to rookie driver. So they have had drivers with more experience driving the car since. So it's a little less risky, but also you never know what's going to happen when there are other rookie drivers on track. So that's really where it's going to get questionable. But Max is going to have 3 full practice sessions. And that's all I really give a shit about.
It's like driving in the snow. Like, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about all the other drivers. But no, with all the rookie drivers in a session, that's a lot. Like, even for, Max has to be careful. Lando has to be careful. Everyone has to be careful because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Almost half the grid is rookie drivers. That's terrifying. Something's gonna happen.
Yeah, so it's gonna be very interesting. Keep an eye on that first Abu Dhabi practice session, and also I'm very curious to see how drivers are gonna do once they get back in it. Obviously, Abu Dhabi is a track that everyone is really, really familiar with, so an hour isn't the end of the world, especially if insert driver name here does the run plan that McLaren needs him to do for Oscar, and they'll get a lot of data anyway. And I don't know, it's going to be such an interesting race weekend.
I know it is. Okay, with that, let's get into our Abu Dhabi predictions. Not gonna lie, extreme bias in this. We are going full beans on full bias. Welcome to our bias podcast. Okay, so who do you have for your pole sitter for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix and the finale of the 2025 season?
So, going full bias, going on pace, I'm going with Oscar.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going Max Verstappen.
Okay.
Okay, then who do you have for your podium?
My podium is Max is going to clinch the championship podium. It's going to be Max, George, Oscar, because I think that George is feeling some like vengeful feelings about things not going his way this weekend. So I think that we're going to see a different George. I think Oscar is going to be better, and then Lando is going to be all in his head, and something is going to happen to Lando that will give Max the championship.
Yeah, I've got Max, Oscar, Kimi.
Max.
I'm all in on Kimi Antonelli now. I know I said that Toto should never give him a seat 2 years ago. However,
we were so
I changed
wrong.
my mind. I'm not feeling super hopeful about my podium. However, I'm excited about it.
That said, our inaccurate initial thoughts on Kimi Antonelli have been immortalized both on our podcast and in the Kimi Antonelli documentary, The Seat, which if you have not watched, it is on Netflix. You should watch it because we are in it. And also, if you want to watch watch us be wrong and watch us explain why we were so wrong, that is all linked above after our wild Miami weekend earlier this year, which I cannot believe this was all in the same season. And
I know.
It is wild how time flies and how time works.
Okay, P10, who you got?
I'm going with your boy. I'm going with Alex Albon. So I really just pulled a name out of a hat.
I know. I also have Alex again just because I want him to finish with a point. Who knows? Honestly.
Yeah.
If I was really feeling biased, I'd have Lando get P10 just to say it's funny because he got a point. He wasn't out of the points completely, but truly deep down, I'm hoping for a DNF from him. So we'll see.
Yeah, I very much want to see any scenario where Max and Oscar put him out of reach of the championship. And I think it's fully possible if Oscar's driving the way he's driving. And they even said on the broadcast, like, Oscar could help Lando. And I'm like, he could, but he not gonna. Because it was early on where Max was right behind Lando. And Oscar, it was like right after DRS was activated. And it's like, well, Oscar could help Lando with DRS. And like, he's like, I'm leaving, bye. And I'm like, yeah, there's no way that's gonna happen.
No, and it's great to see Oscar truly do everything in his power to stay in this. Like, he won the sprint. He got P2 after McLaren, pitted or chose not to pit. He literally did everything he could do to get points, and I'm very excited for him. But we'll see what happens next weekend. Okay, so last but not least, surprise and who's going to do a dumb just for funsies. My surprise is that Max wins the Drivers' Championship.
Mine too!
This is all I want now. I want is for Max to win. And if you ever would have thought I would say that in my lifetime, no. However, I want him to win over Lando. So go Max.
Fully, yeah. The full circle of the like Max going from that rookie upstart that everyone's really excited about to like the villain to like, okay, the new,
he's our savior now.
we need our savior. Like, I'm so entertained by it, especially like coming into F1 when I did of the peak of the rivalry between Lewis and Max, and it's like, ooh, I like this kid. He seems like he's kind of an asshole. I'm kind of an asshole. This, like, he's my driver now, which is as I have said, that is how I picked my driver. And like to see like the full circle of how everybody in the sport feels about him is just been so interesting, especially as somebody who is this is my fourth full season in the sport.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, who's gonna do a dumb, Kathryn?
1, 2, 3, McLaren.
Lando. Same thing. Yeah, I think something's going to happen. I think, Oscar is going to do better than in qualifying. They're going to try and, make it so that Lando does better. And I think it's just going to be a big mess.
Well, I think like if Oscar outqualifies Lando, I think it's going to be the same thing that happened today, where because Oscar outqualified Lando, they have to make it fair and not do anything to support Oscar in a way that's going to be to a detriment to Lando. And I think that we're running into that same case where even McLaren has said, we are going to treat our drivers equally, aka we are not going to give Oscar any extra advantage that we would happily give to Lando if we could get away with it. If that means Max wins the championship, then so be it, which I think is an absolute disservice to both drivers. More so Oscar because I like him better. But I do think that we are running into a point where McLaren is going to have to eat those words. And I'm so excited to see that.
I know. It's going to be wild. But I'm super excited. We haven't had like a true good season finale in a long time. Like you said, since 2021. This is big deal. Super exciting. I can't wait. Yay.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be so much fun. So as we said, this is going to be our combo Abu Dhabi predictions and Qatar Grand Prix recap. So there will not be an episode out on Thursday, but we will be back with our reaction episode following whatever we're going to be reacting to. And oh gosh, it's going to be so much.
It is. I can't wait. I'm so excited. We will have our big grand finale out for you guys next week. That is it for Qatar and also half of Abu Dhabi. Thanks for going off track with us, guys.